Welcome to J-Rod Fishing Voice Memos. I don't know what this thing is called. I had to move a bunch of stuff around from YouTube to Spotify to back and forth. YouTube kept jacking with stuff. I don't know how this works. I just like to record my thoughts on when I have a tournament or when I'm pre-fishing or to give a fishing report. That's all I'm trying to do. This one is somewhat of a, I don't want to say a sad one. I don't know why. We have a hard time in our family in early October. If you guys know us, everybody out there that's hearing this, we've had some stuff, everyone has had something bad happen in their life. So when those dates come around for like the reunions of bad stuff that's happened, you kind of get into a funk. It doesn't matter if it was 3 months ago, 3 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. When you get in that time of year, you start looking at the calendar. October hits because it's not the calendar, it's the weather, it's the falls here. You wake up one morning and it's 40 and it's foggy over the lake. Leaves are falling. Things remind you. Smells remind you. So it's kind of like it encompasses your entire being of reminders. So I don't know how to describe that, but I'm wanting to talk about a tournament, and you've got all that going on. You've got a hurricane that just came through. You've got the Middle East going at it again, as always. It's just a weird time. The vice president debate was last night. Just the politics, just everything going on is just kind of a weird time. But in all of that being said, day in and day out, I guess the world still turns. There's another October here. And fishing and hunting is, I don't want to say my only outlet. Fishing has always been my best outlet. I love to hunt too, and it really gets me going here in October when the deer are moving and stuff. But fishing is the number one outlet for me. Now, I don't know if tournament fishing is becoming a great outlet or not. We'll get into that, but fishing is something that is positive, I would say. And it's something that keeps me out of trouble. It's an outlet that is basically safe, if that makes sense. Because there's outlets that are not. And you don't want to get into that. So fishing keeps me grounded, I think. It gives me something to look forward to. They just had the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And sorry, I'm getting way off topic. I'm just rambling. But, you see those guys that got inducted. You've got Zona, you've got Skeet. They're still giving Rick Clunn awards even after he's in the Hall of Fame. He's done so much. And they talk about their struggles more than they talk about their accomplishments. And I think that's what sticks with you sometimes. This past Toyota, I don't know why I'm bummed about it, because I didn't get into it to go win the tournament. And the Toyota was definitely a struggle for me. It's at the end of the year. I didn't fish a lot of tournaments this year, but I did fish a lot in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I was not very successful in any of them. Was not. Once you kind of get into a slump of tournament results, it can get you down a little bit. But when I have to remind myself that when I signed up for this Toyota, I did not have the goal of going to win, and I don't. So when I look at results, you kind of get bummed out, and then I over and over have to say, hey man, that's not why you got into it. I got into it exactly for what I got out of it, and what I got out of it, I drew Corey Cook on the first day, which I know Corey very well. I would say, just as far as see him all the time at PB2, always close to PB2. We've got a condo a mile from it. I mean, I'm always around Corey. I wish I could fish more of his tournaments, but no matter if you live at the lake or not, you still have life to take care of. And so with running around with gymnastics with kid, dance with the kid, and I'm not even doing a portion of what Christy is doing. It takes up a lot of time. So, and that's the most important thing. So I don't get to fish as many of I don't get to fish the Wednesday nighter. I don't get to fish the Thursday nighter. There's a Tuesday nighter that's really fun. I don't have time for during the week night tournaments. I do get into some of the weekend tournaments, as you guys know, but anyway, we know each other. I've followed Roger and Corey for quite some time. They are absolute hammers, and everybody that lives at the lake, they already know I'm not giving up any of their secrets, that they mostly target fish, and they like to put out brush, as a lot of us do. But they're very good at it. There is one thing to put out brush and then to say, well, I've got 500 piles. I think if I hit 50 of them today, I'll run into some. That's a good mindset, but it's an art, and it's very hard to do, to put out a certain amount of brush and put it in the right place, to put the right kind of brush out, to put piles out that don't necessarily, there's a difference between a huge crappie pile and a pile that you think a keeper bass is going to make its home or use enough to rely on during a tournament. And as we saw in the results, we did not. Corey had 5 good bites. He put 3 of them in the boat, which shows you just how tough that the fishing was at Lake of the Ozarks. I think it was the pressure. I think it was a lot of changing conditions. There was a lot of water dropping, and there was a lot of things changing with the fish. So, we fished brush pretty much all day, and I know that we probably fished some of the best brush that's around, and I know that you could do well doing that. There was a lot of locals. There was a lot of people from out of town that didn't do very good on the first day. Some of them did better on the second day. On the first day we had pretty sunny conditions, and it seemed like it was going to set up really, really good for a really, really good brush bite, dock bite. And everyone knows there's a lot of docks on Lake of the Ozarks, and they like to use the shade, etc. Now, I'm not going to talk on here and give up all. It's not like Corey has a lot of secrets, because he's done so well in tournaments that the word has gotten out. I'm not going to sit here and give you every detail of what he did. I am going to say one thing, though, that I was very impressed with and I thought was interesting. He does not fish it, some of it, the way that you think that he does. And it's not the bait. It's a lot with boat positioning and a lot with being extremely stealthy and giving yourself a chance to get around those fish that live around brush and docks without them knowing that you're there. And that is something that separates, the Denny Browers from, guys like me, guys that don't necessarily have good results. And it's not the bait sometimes. It's how you approach where you're going. It's kind of like deer hunting. If you knew that a big buck was near your deer stand, you either decide, I'm not going to get close to that because I know I'm going to spook that buck away, or you find a way to get in there and without him knowing. And you've got to be stealthy. You've got to be very conscious of what you're doing. And that's what impressed me with Corey probably the most, was boat positioning and just kind of how he approached some of the areas that he was fishing. So it was pretty cool to watch. I wish that he would have done better, because he puts a lot of time into it. And so what do I do? So what do the co-anglers do when I'm not going to get into the forward-facing sonar thing yet, because that really happened on day 2, which I fished with Joe to Fly. He's a guide from Oklahoma. It was really cool talking to him about Oklahoma stuff, because I've spent a lot of time down there. But what do you do when a co-angler is fishing behind someone that is fishing target-oriented docks? There's a million docks on Lake of the Ozarks. The big thing in the clubs, and I say the clubs because I would hear more complaints from old-time club members. I'm just going to put it out there that they would get front-ended. They're tired of getting front-ended. My boater, he just nosed in there, and he was flipping behind docks all day in the walkways, and I got front-ended. I never got a chance. Well, I can tell you, on fishing on Thursday, I had tons of chances. They cannot flip to everything that's there, and if they do, say they power pull down and flip to everything, they're probably going to do it with 1 or 2 baits, and you have a lot of water to fish in between the docks. This lake has a bunch of brush that is away from the docks, because think about this. Think about, you own a dock, you walk down there, and you want to plant brush. So you're going to put brush in the well so you can drop down a crappie fish. But a lot of the brush is around the docks, and some of it is casting distance from the dock, way out in front of the docks, way out off the end of the docks, the side of the docks. And we get so focused on flipping up next to the floats, which that's where a lot of the fish are. But there is also plenty of opportunity if you want to Texas rig a brush hog, Texas rig a worm, shaky head, throw a minnow over the top of the brush, throw a jerkbait over the top of the brush. it seems like you're fishing open water, and you are, but there's brush around that is away from where they are focused on. Even whenever a boater is fishing dock corners or the sides of docks or the front of docks, like on the brace bars all around the dock, you have fish that are not necessarily on the dock. Now let's say you figure out there's a way to catch them behind somebody if they're throwing a jig, for instance. If you get on the Toyota Major League Fishing galleries, you can tell that they were actually fishing jigs a lot. But there's other things that you can throw around the docks, like a wacky Cinco or a weighted Nico wacky. You can throw a minnow, you can throw a chatterbait, you can throw so many things. I can go over and over. 2 weeks before the tournament started, I could have swore I would have bet my truck and boat that I could have got a limit on a square bill so easy that there was no way that I would not have a limit every day. I didn't hardly pick it up during the tournament. I don't know why. I didn't really set up for it on Thursday. I probably could have threw it a little bit on Friday, but that's not really what I was catching them on, so I didn't go back to that. But there's other things that you can do. So making an excuse, this guy's front-ending me, or this guy's live scoping a lot, I don't think it's a good excuse, because there's other things that you can do. Now, are you staring at them with the screen in the back? No. Are you kind of seeing their movements and stuff? No. But a lot of times, if there's a graph on in the back, or now, the boaters have a big enough graph, you can kind of see what's going on, and you can get a feel for what's going on without staring at a graph. But what I'm saying is, in the front, some of their graphs are so big, you can sit there and watch it if you want to kind of see what's going on. But on a co-angler perspective, I think we really try to we watch the boater, so we're trying to imitate them, which I've gotten away from that. I fished with Lawson Hibden, and I tried to jig fish with him all day. If he caught him on a little jig, I'd put the little jig on. If he caught him on a football jig, I put the football jig on. And then by the end of the day, I did end up with a couple keepers, but it was just like, okay, what am I doing here? I'm trying to jig fish behind a Hibden, which is ridiculous. Like, what? I mean, it'd be like trying to, I don't know. It's just not very smart as a co-angler. You kind of try to do something different. Now, if you've got a boater that's up there and you have confidence in what you're doing and they're not doing very well, let's just face it, guys. Sometimes we draw a boater that's not the caliber of some of the anglers in the field. On those days, and you know that they're going through a good stretch, heck, anywhere you're at, put your brush hog on and put your jig on and go to work with it. And if it doesn't work, go back to your finesse stuff. But try to dial in something that is working and stay with it. It's so hard to do. And I think really, me talking through this, that's one of my problems that I had this weekend on the results side, was I just couldn't dial in anything that I could catch a keeper on. And then when I would start catching a lot of 14 inchers, then I would try to stay with that. And then I would try to do something else. And that's kind of just the way I fish. If you're going down a rocky bank, pick up a buzzbait or a plopper and go down it. Maybe I should have finesse jigged down it more. I don't know. Like on Friday, it was cloudy and windy, like it was the week before. There was a Monday that was rainy with no wind. So I went and checked the fish at the dam. It was absolutely stupid. And I was just checking baits that I could catch fish as a co-angler. But probably one of the worst co-angler baits that you could ever throw is a buzzbait. I say that because it can mess with the boater's head. If it's a loud one like a crocodigator or a head knocker, some type of loud buzzbait, it gets annoying. If it's putting fish in the boat, it just jacks with everyone. That's the goal, is to put fish in the boat. But on Monday, I couldn't put it down. I just kept going with it and checking this pocket, checking this channel swing. And then there was a whole bunch of people in the back, so I just kept staying on the main lake with it. And I figured out that there was a really good main lake bite. It didn't necessarily have to be a channel swing. If you could find an isolated dock that was shallow, it was money. And apparently that was going on all the way up the lake. It's just up the lake, they were getting a better quality bite. Now on Monday, you could have competed with them at the dam. But there was just a really good main lake bite going on. They were dropping some water down, so I think it sucked a lot of shad down. But there was just a really awesome bite. So during the tournament, I had to have my buzzbait tied on. I had 2 or 3 of them in the box, ready to go. And now I didn't throw it very much on Thursday, so conditions weren't really right for it, and the spots we were at weren't really. I mean, I could have threw it around some dock corners, and I probably tried a few times, but it just wasn't my go-to. Now on Friday, I threw it quite a bit. It was windy. It was a little cooler. It was cloudy, and it was like the shad had pushed to the bottom and moved out. And so the buzzbait bite was non-existent. I think we caught a few on a chopper, and they were about 13 inches long. So I just could not get that bite going. So let's transition into Friday. I know we're 23 minutes into this. Nobody's going to listen to me this long, but I might listen to it later and pick up on something that I can run with. And this is one of them. So on Friday, the shad were definitely where we were at. So we fished from basically Shawnee Mission boat ramp to about the 2-mile marker. Now, if he gets pissed that I just said that whole section of the lake, so be it. I'm sorry, man. But the reason that I'm saying this is because I don't know if the shad were a lot shallower where they caught them up the river, or if we missed some of the shallower shad. But where we were at, the shad were, you can't really put a depth on it, but there was a lot of shad in that 20-foot range, which seems deep when there's all the conditions that we had. You'd think there'd be shad blown up on the bank. You'd think there'd be a lot shallower fish roaming around, and there really was not. It was almost like if you were an old school brush pile fisherman and you had a bunch of piles in that I'll just say 10 to 20, then you would have been good. And you could have fished brush all day, which you think that the day before, when it was extremely sunny, would have been the deal. And it was almost like it's been the opposite, where on the sunny days, the shad are getting up high in the water column, and then when the wind blows around, you can catch them on the dock floats, and you can catch them up on the bank, and you can catch them doing pretty much whatever you want to do. And then on the cloudy days, it's like, I know they're still chasing bait, but since the bait is being pushed down and they're pulled out, that you are better off staying off the bank. You're way better off almost forgetting about the docks and all the rocks and the good banks that you caught them on, and just stayed out there with the shad, which that's what Joe was trying to do. He was trying to live scope, and he could see those fish underneath the bait balls, and a lot of the fish were a lot deeper than what I expected, which we're learning with live scope that there's always a lot of fish out deep. And if you want to scope pretty much all the time, you can. And the fish, I think, are getting a lot deeper than people realize. Now, it changes day by day. So wherever the shad are at, there's bass around. So whatever you got to do to catch them. And from the co-angler side on that, we've got a lot of complaints about, well, they're scoping, I'm just sitting in the back. Well, one, you're learning from your boaters. So you're learning, okay, what are they focused on? Which Joe was pretty much, he had a pattern going, but he was mostly focused on the shad. So if there was a shad ball over here, if the shad ball off a point, if the shad ball was in a big bay or a pocket, he could follow them around a little bit. He could follow and find pods of bass, and he got a limit. He did really good on Friday, but he didn't get any big ones. And this all being said, we checked a lot of different things because we really weren't catching any big ones. Hell, I only had one keeper, and it was a Kentucky. So we did go to the back of some pockets and catch some fish, but still they were short, and they were also, you could see the bank line where the water had been pulled out. So we kind of, I'd say mostly main lake, but you could always see the main lake. So if we were into a pocket somewhere, you could still see the main lake. So we wasn't like we ran up Indian and the Gravois, or we didn't run up the Glaze past PB1. Like we were always in the main lake vicinity. So it was an eye opener for me on what you can do with live scope, which I saw it at the Bass Open last year. The guys that are on a different level with live scope, I think, totally have an advantage whenever it gets tough like that. I wish that I could afford a bigger live scope for my boat, but that's not going to happen right now. But maybe someday we'll kind of see where this technology thing settles down to, and then I'll have more of a perspective of what I need to get. I've tried a few times to just quit using it. It is super fun when you are fun fishing. Without it, it is not fun to crappie fish without it anymore. I'll just say that. And it's getting to where it's harder for me to fish without it. Just bass fishing. It's just so powerful. It is so powerful of showing you instantly some things that are going on. Because if you're finding a bunch of fish chasing bait, that's not the only thing that's going on, especially on Lake of the Ozarks. Because we've got your resident dogfish. We've got the fish that stay in the back pretty much all the time. Some of the backs of our creeks have springs. Some of them have just a great mixture of rock. It's set up right with a good creek channel, and there's fish that stay in the back all the time. There's fish that stay on. There's docks that are in 30-some foot of water that I guarantee you there are fish on it all year long. So we have a lot of dock residents, I guess you could say. And so when you scope and you're saying, oh, they're just chasing bait in the back of this pocket. That's what we got to do. We got to run these pockets, live scope. It's not the only thing that's going on. So it's not the set all be all, which makes Lake of the Ozarks a fun tournament lake usually, because you don't have to have it to compete here. You can run and flip docks forever. You can run laydowns. You can run anything you want. Rock. You can do a lot of things without live scope. But when you start using it and learning it, and you can smash them. I mean, it's unreal. Joe, I don't know how many fish Joe caught on Friday. I really don't. I'm just say 50. Maybe a little under, maybe a lot over 50 of them. And he wound up with I'm not sure what he weighed in, but he had 5. They probably weren't enough to get him up into the check line. I didn't look. I don't think he wound up with a good bag on Thursday. And that happened to a lot of people. Now, could he have done something different? Could we have done something different? I don't really think so. I think we both fished super hard. We were figuring out how to get bites on a tough day, and it's one of those days where you just got to weed through them all. Weed through them and hope that you get a bigger bite. I was hooked up a few times with that just kind of came off. It's hard to tell. I wound up getting bit a lot on I ran out of 2.8 Kitex, so whatever the one above that, I think it's 3.3. I blew through a bunch of 3.3 Kitex. That's one thing that is a little tough as a co-angler, is you can't pack everything. So let's say you're on a Cinco bite, which I always carry a lot of Cincos as a co, because you can Nico them, you can wacky them, etc. So I carry a lot of like green pumpkin or mowed grass, or I don't think they have a watermelon candy, but they have a large green flake and large purple flake. That's their watermelon candy. And so I'll have 3 or 4 bags of those, and maybe 1 or 2 bags of black with blue fleck in it. And the reason I do that is because once you do start to get bites on something, you can weed through baits quickly. That goes for the Kitex. So if you think that you're going to get on a Kitex bite, you better have some super glue, or you better have a bunch of them, because you can run through Kitex like crazy, and you can't take that much stuff as a co. So you got to manage that part. On the so I kind of weeded through what I could catch, and threw my one Kentucky back. I don't have any skin in the game in these Yodas this year. Last year I missed going to Table Rock by just a few points. That kind of sucked. Last year I did want to do good. I did want to go to the Table Rock, and then next year I've got to make the decision on, do I want to go to Grand? Because I'm just not... I don't feel like I have a good enough boat, or I can get enough time off to go fish as a boater. down at Kentucky Lake. Now, I don't know why I'm saying that, because I know I can. But if I put somebody in a 20-year-old boat and it breaks down and messes up our fishing day, I'm going to feel like crap. Now, as we see, there's some anglers, they don't care. They'll show up with a 40-year-old boat and try to fish. And they got through it. They had boat problems. If you go to Blockett's channel, he had all kinds of boat problems. It's pretty comical, really, because of all the stuff he was having to deal with. I just chuckle because, holy crap, man. He borrowed I don't know if that boat was 30 or 40 years old Ranger. Man, he had a lot of problems with that boat, but he got through it. So maybe I shouldn't worry about it. If that thing's still getting you up and down the creek, which my boat does, then why worry about it? There's a lot of guys with brand new boats that they break down. I need to get down to Kentucky Lake because, guys, I would like to go as a boater next year. I've done this long enough that I know I can compete as a boater. 2 of them being on Lake of the Ozarks, it's almost a no-brainer. But, a lot of other things have to align with any of our goals with tournament fishing, etc. Faith, family, and fishing. That's really, if I keep those in line, my life goes a lot better. If I get those 3 things out of whack, then I tend to, it hurts my fishing. We'll just put it that way. Hurts a lot of things. So, if I can get all that in there and then put the other F on there, it's financing. So, faith, family, fishing, and finances, do the 4 F's. And if I can get all that in line, then I'll go as a boater. So, and I've said that for several years. I said it last year big time. It was mostly due to some I was going to say it was due to some draws that I had. And I say that not that I drew some bad boaters. It was that I drew some good ones that showed me, hey, I can do this. I could do what they were doing. And they were very good fishermen. Now, through the years, I've had some boaters that, this is another number one co-angler excuse that I hear that's BS. So I have financially or got more checks with boaters that weren't necessarily Kevin Van Dam's, if you know what I mean. So it can go both ways, but I could definitely compete, and if I can get all my ducks in a row, then that's what we're going to do. But I've rambled on for 38 minutes, but hey, this helps me kind of get some stuff off my chest, helps me get to work. I'm driving to work, which I probably shouldn't be talking while I'm doing this, but it helps me kind of get through it. And I'm either listening to a podcast or a good YouTube or doing some of these on my way to work. The radio right now is just, it's politics, it's the hurricane, it's Hezbollah leaders getting blown up. It's just all, what are we doing, I work in commercial transportation, and they shut all my ports down from the East Coast down to Texas. What are we doing? What are we doing? And to get this kind of all off your chest, sometimes we just got to go fishing. So I'm going to keep my head up, and I'm going to keep fishing.